Welcome to another SuperCoach Hub NBL review. I'm going to be your host today, Verns, and joined by me is the lovely SuperCoach Boz. How you doing, Boz?
Yeah, Verns, I'm doing well, mate. The first couple of rounds haven't gone too much in my favour, but still staying positive and keen to turn this season around. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, I'm good, mate. Had a good weekend myself. Been watching all the NBL, which I love doing. It's so easy to watch these games. Like, obviously, we're both AFL men, but you can't really skip through those kind of games. I love being able to just like smash out an NBL game and I swear like 45 minutes because you just sit there with the plus 15. Anytime there's a timeout, there's two shots, whatever it is, to just quickly get through those. It makes life so much easier to watch all the games. So, yeah, really been enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm in the
um,
same boat as you.
Awesome. So let's jump into how did you do this week? I know the answers not well, but tell us about it.
Yeah, look, not too well this week. 325, purely because of my guards and my captain choice in Derek Walton Jr. But look, sitting at 5,778 ranking and, unfamiliar territory to where I was last year. I think this time last year I was about 200th in the ranking. So a bit to climb. But as I said, staying positive, pretty keen to use a boost this week, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit later. How about yourself? How'd you go?
Yeah, I actually very similar score to you, but you flipped the 3 into a 4, 425. Went up 8,600 ranks to 2,700, which, same as you, very unfamiliar to what we had in our one season last year. You started off rank 13, went to rank 12, 11, and then had a little bit of a backward slide. But yeah, didn't see four figures all of last season. I started off this season with 5, and it's a very different ball game this year. Yeah. But we had some awesome games this week. Honestly, just some really interesting results. I mean, we had some massive games out of like Magnay on a single, Warningbird on a single, PJC on a single, your man. And I know in a few weeks' time, it's going to be Operation Get PJC at all costs. So, yeah, what did you take from this week?
Yeah, you're right in saying there was some massive single game performances, and I think that kind of highlights that you can take risks on guys on a single, especially if they're those kind of premium players. I mean, I wouldn't think Wardenberg is too much of a premium, but someone like a Madney and a PJC, they're guys that you're pretty confident now that they can put out a 50 as we saw with Magnay on a single game week, and if you are choosing between someone on a double who might be a little less known or a little less of a role in their team. You can probably double think that now and maybe hold on to some guys that have that massive kind of scoring potential.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talked about at the start of the year, like, don't touch PJC, just get him after your double. Honestly, if you started him and you held him on a single, you were like surprisingly rewarded insanely. Like, it just how well that pick would have worked out for you. And I guess on the reverse of that, some guys that had doubles that just burnt us to a crisp. Obviously, we're talking about Shea Ely here, very highly owned player, and just he dropped more points in his single last week than he did in his double this week. It was just very disappointing. And yeah, a real yin yang that sometimes these guys on the double don't show up, and sometimes the guys on the single can just blow them out of the water. So really surprising.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you prioritize a double game week, but at the same time, you've seen very early on already how much it can actually burn you. And you're right, so many yin yang games from players. Joey Walton Jr. started off so hot, not so hot in his first game, but a solid 28. Thinking a 56 to 60 captaincy score for myself would be nice, and then he comes out and I think he only had 6 points yesterday or something like that. So the yin yang is in true force.
Yeah, man, and it really just shows, like, as the yin yang, the versatility. Like, we have someone expecting was, as he said, Warningberg isn't usually a guy that's going to drop 50 points for you, but apparently on your day you can. I mean, that man was knocking down shots, looking elite from the outside, getting so many rebounds, getting steals, getting involved, and I was just like, damn, like, we all know Ford rates this guy, but that was an insane performance from him, and very unexpected. So is he actually a target for you this week coming into the doubles?
Look, I've had a look at my team, and I think he might have to be a target, to be honest. I mean, Cairns have that nice kind of double game schedule coming up with a single and then another double. So within the next 4 weeks, you're getting 7 games out of Wardenberg. And I know a lot of people, including myself, had Wardenberg last year, and it was a bit of a interesting experience to own him. Some games playing 30 minutes, other games really seeing court time. So it is buyer beware. But at the same time, I do think that 50 and that solid showing in a Cairns win as well should bode well for him to obviously get that good court time on the double game weeks coming up.
Yeah, and definitely do amount for his confidence. I mean, he was draining threes like crazy. It's making players have to respect you. And I think Brisbane is one of their. I feel like they're playing Brisbane this week. Oh man, I should check that before I just randomly state Brisbane. Who have
I
they
know they
got this
have
week?
Tassie. They got Tassie, that's for sure.
That's what I was thinking actually. Um, Tassie and Melbourne, which honestly, if he can stretch the floor on these guys, like I think he'll be pretty comfortable, especially against Tassie, which is a bit of an undermanned side, like outside of Will Magnay sort of thing. And if he's forcing them to stretch, or if he gets, in a situation matched up on Will and forces them out of the key, I think he's going to punish them if he's on his game. So, yeah, and just with the break even as well, obviously comes out a massive 50, and we know the first game doesn't actually count towards his price change. So that 18 irrelevant to what he got. What matters is he got 50. And that's going to be insane for his break even. I think he's got an 8 break even coming into this week. If the man gets 40, he's going up over 30K. Like, that's more enticing than the actual scoring itself. Like, if he comes in and gets 40, that's pretty subpar. That's basically what he's priced at. But then to earn 30K on top of it, oof, that looks nice. Probably something we should talk about when we get to most traded and most traded out, because I think he's going to be up there. But any other players stand out to you?
Look, I think the one for me was, well, there's two from Sydney, and I think I do want to touch on Xavier Cooks, because I think in the preseason I did say that, we didn't see much in the preseason, but I also remember saying, if you're a Xavier Cooks fan, feel free to select him, because for all we know, he's just kind of cruising through, and then he'll probably pull out a massive score, and he's pulled out a massive couple of scores to start this year. So he actually top scored for the round with 77, ending higher than Adams, which I think after the first game, everyone kind of thought Adams would have been the top scorer of the round. But yeah, Cooks was super impressive. He hits the glass so hard, and he's just, you can see the way he plays. He wants to win every single game that he can. So I think he's going to be a really, really strong kind of premium option moving forward for the Kings.
Yeah, I do think Sydney's working a lot differently than what we expected coming into this. And just what I mean by that is, when we saw the blitz, we saw a lot of guys getting court time. We went, man, there's so much talent in this. They're going to have to spread the minutes, but they've been a lot more of a tighter rotation than I thought they were going to be. Adams playing 30 plus minute and only switching with Bruce for the 8 to sort of 10 minutes. Cooks is pushing towards that as well. And even though Oliver's coming on, it's not a direct switch. They are having Oliver and Cooks on the field at the same time. And it's a real different mix to what I personally thought it was going to be like at the start of this season. And yeah, like, he's been insane. He's been absolutely incredible. And I feel bad calling him like fool's gold before the season started, because, we talked about with Adams, just in the sense that he got a 75, he made insane money. Like, there's nothing better than a premium that's getting you points and making you money. Like, that's the perfect mix right there. And Cooks one-upped him, like did it a little bit better this week. And he's just looking insanely good. So yeah, definitely some massive scores this week. White bounced back with a huge game. So anyone that traded him out just gets slapped in the face. Look, he had a 19, then a 24, and then comes out with 23, and then comes out with a massive 48. And this was an insane game. Like, this was so good. And just like I talked about him when I did my YouTube video about him potentially being a captain option. When I said it, I thought it was a bit of a pottish move, but he really went massive. What, 4th highest score for this round was he? Yeah, 4th highest. So if you weren't on Adams, he was the guy to go for, which I think was pretty surprising.
Well, I mean, if you think to the first half of the game on Thursday night, if you go back to he was statless.
Yeah.
He was on 0. So if it wasn't for that kind of, I think he ended up on 6, 10, and 8, which was all accumulated in that second half of that first game. Then they gave him the confidence to go out against Tassie and put up a good performance. But that game there, Melbourne versus Tassie, that was an absolute blockbuster. Seeing all the heavyweights go to work. Magnay, and I don't think Magnay and Rob Lowe like each other very much. They in the first 2 games they've played this year against each other, they've committed a few fouls, and a few of them have ended up on the floor.
Oh man, I laugh every time I see Magnay drop. The man just loves to flop. He just loves to drop the smallest amount of contact, and he's just down. And you're like, bruh. But saying that, he got so many blocks on them. He was torching them inside. They could not go to the ring. He was just on that game where every time he jumped, it just looked like he timed it perfectly. Like, impossible to get it around him. Like, He just was so dominant inside. And then who else was someone that stood out there? I think the crazy thing with that game is there wasn't too many super high SuperCoach scores though. Like you had Magnate come out with a good one, Delhi came out with a good one, White came out with a good one, and then the rest were just like 25 at most, like very subpar at that point. So it was actually a bit of a punishing game. But yeah, Jack White downhill looks so much better than being stagnant, not really moving. I don't know, first few games, it felt like he was parked at the 3, not really getting inside, but they move that ball quick and they move it in transition and let him get downhill. He was unstoppable going to the basket. Once he got up, he just always felt like he was finishing that basket. So yeah, he was super exciting to watching that second game, and something I'm very much looking forward to when we get, if you hold on to him. Obviously we have round 3. I'm very excited for it this round. He'll have his triple double games a little bit later, so if you hold on to him till then, but yeah, we'll figure that all out. But yes, enough just, I guess, talking about a few things here and there. Let's jump into the actual most traded in players this round. Look, it's too early in the season, in my opinion, to really be looking at top percentages of players, because we just saw how much it shuffled. You know, I was 11K last week, 2K this week. I'm sure you probably went up 5,000 or so spots yourself. It's just, there's too much movement early on. Like one good move and you just go flying around the ranks. So I think we just look at all coaches for the most traded in players. So we'll start off with the most traded in guys. Number 5, I'm a bit surprised here, but at the same time, not. It is going to be Elijah Pepper. 4.1% of teams have traded him in. I'll let you start off. How did you feel?
Well, look, with Pepper, I was watching that Perth game on Friday night, and he was the difference maker in getting them back into the game. They came out super sloppy, Perth. Killed me to see it because Jalen Adams got literally gifted 4 steals that literally just landed in his lap from some sloppy passing from Doolittle and Pinder, etc. So, you know, they had to find some punch from the bench, and unfortunately, Henschel was out with that illness. So Pepper was that next man up, and boy, he played a really good game. I think, to be honest, at the end there, it was their detriment because I think he thought he had the hot hand and he jacked up a 3 to try and win the game for them when they could have probably run a better set. But honestly, played really well, Pepper. You know, for 69K, still hasn't had that price rise just yet. I can see why coaches are trading him in. However, with Henschel coming back in this round, we believe, how much does that kind of eat away at his time on the court?
Yeah, it's such an interesting one with Pepper, Henschel. Which way do you go? And the funny thing is, with Pepper getting the 27, obviously his first game doesn't count. So him and Henschel have the exact same break even because they both have 27 in a single coming into a double. So it's an exact same break even. That's not going to make the difference. It really comes down to who do you think is going to perform better. And you're right. He had the hot hand. He was nailing those threes, and they were beautiful threes too. They just kept nothing but net every time. Splash, splash, splash. But that does beg the question. He relied heavily on scoring big buckets to not only give him the minutes, I feel, but to score his SuperCoach points. So if you take that out of the game, I think it's going to be a drastic drop. I do think in round 1, Henschel did a lot more than just score buckets. So I do think Henschel will come back in. I think Pepper has definitely showed himself this week that maybe he might get an increase in 6 minutes in the first week. He might get a bit of an increase from that, but I think Henschel will still get more minutes over him. And he does a bit more on the court. So I think he'll find other ways to score rather than just actually scoring the ball. Saying that though, Henschel's obviously significantly more highly owned. So because he's more highly owned, there's less people to trade him in. So it makes more sense that people are trading in Pepper. And probably just to make a point of difference as well. If you have started off a bit slow, you may be looking for a different way to catch up on all those guys that probably did start Henschel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, sorry, just before we move on to the next player, just one thing I noticed on the stream watching that on Friday night, I saw that Webster had some ice around his calf. So not sure if he's injured at all, but I did notice that in one of the last timeouts towards the end of the game. So I guess just keep an eye on that when the injury reports come out. Because if Webster's out, then it makes sense for Henschel to start, and then Pepper's kind of that next one off the bench. So there could be some actual minutes available for Pepper.
Yeah, it could end up with both of them being good picks. If he would have missed the double game, both of them would be insane picks just for cash making purposes, which I think is the biggest focus here. We're looking at guys that have great break evens and are gonna make cash. Number 4 coming in. This is a guy that does the combination that I mentioned it before with Adams and Cooks. He's scoring points and he's making money. It is Kendrick Davis. 277K, traded in by 5.2% of the competition, so he's up to 20% now. Look, he's on the double-double. I personally felt he underperformed in both these games. Like, I just didn't think he was that hot shot in game 1 or game 2, and he still put out 27 points and 31 points. Like, if he's doing that while not playing that well, in my opinion, what's he gonna do when he like actually looks good on the court? Like, he just looks like he could go massive on a good day, and he does find ways to get assists. To be fair, some of those might just be giving it to 3J, who's going to jack it from anywhere, and he's been on fire these first 2 games. So you give him the ball, you get an assist. But yeah, someone that I'm personally very interested in. I think any serious super coacher would be looking at him. They've also got Southeast in the Thursday night clash, and we saw with Southeast already, they play a high tempo game that has high scoring, but that also leads to high super coach scoring. So I do think he'll be very, very good this week.
Yeah, look, Davis definitely someone to target. You're right in saying that he can score in multiple ways, and that's what we spoke about in the preseason podcast, saying how much we love our guards being able to obviously get their points from assists and steals, not only points. That's what you saw with Jalen Adams, just touching on him in his second game. So obviously came out and dropped 25 in game 1, but he only had 9 points in his second game because he had 9 assists and a few steals as well. He was able to obviously to get that really good kind of score. So someone like KD is going to be very similar. If he's having an off night, which it looks like he kind of has played, a bit off the first 2 games, if he's still getting his 7-8 assists and a steal, he's still going to be able to score high 20s to a 30. So you're right in saying that, we're one kind of big game away from seeing what KD can really score in Supercoach. And I think, Adelaide haven't won a game, Sem haven't won a game. It's going to be a hot contest on Thursday night. And it's at Adelaide, I believe. So I'm going to back in KD, and I'm looking at bringing him in myself.
Yeah, it is at Adelaide. Yeah, I think he's going to be awesome. Number 3, we talked about him a little bit earlier. It is the Wonder Boy, Sam Warningberg. Take it for us. How do you feel?
Well, yeah, as I said before, I guess the Berg is someone who a lot of us owned last year for an extended period when Cairns had a really good kind of run. And there were double game weeks where he put up, I think 60s. There were other double game weeks where he put up 15 in total because he wasn't getting court time. I don't think there is too many options off the bench anymore at Cairns compared to last year. So I do think Wardenberg is safe, especially this early part of the season. Now, that 50 on the weekend, Tanner Groves was in foul trouble the entire game, only ended up playing about 9 minutes. So if you're looking at that box score, guys, I don't think Wardenberg is going to reproduce that. I mean, he can prove me wrong, but look, he had 37 minutes, 50 Supercoach points. We look at game 1, he only had 27 minutes and 18 Supercoach points. So I think in an ideal world on a double game week, if you can get 50 from him in a double, you'd be quite happy. But you're right in saying that 9 break even, that is something that you'll want to target early, get that cash generation. And with those double game weeks, Sam Wardenberg should be able to make some quick money, hopefully a lot of money, but also put some scores on the court for those owners. So definitely someone I'm going to target this week.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I didn't actually mention it, but he's been traded in by 6.3% of the competition. That's over 1,000 people, which that's a large chunk for this, I guess, game of, I forget the word I'm going to use for this, but just for the NBL Supercoach format, for this format of Supercoach. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say. Why was that so hard?
Sometimes we forget those keywords.
But he came in awesome. And you mentioned it, 37 minutes. That is so many minutes, but it's completely relevant to Groves not playing any. And then on top of that, he was playing 5 a lot of the time, and he was playing a stretch 5. They didn't play Gak like Groves minutes. They didn't make up for it by just playing Gak a lot. They actually played the Berg at 5, and he just stretched the floor, and he got a lot of easy rebounds too. There's a lot of times he was the guy under the ring and they're shooting a 3, and if it's missing, he's the guy getting it. It's an uncontested free rebound to the big man underneath. So I think once Groves is getting it, that's probably not going to happen again. Groves eats into some of his rebounds. That takes away from his double-double. You can still get a good game out of Wardenberg, but I would never expect that 50 again. That's probably going to be a career high. But saying that, if you're paying $225K for a guy and he's producing a 40 for you, that's going to be better than most $300K guys on a single. So you'd be very happy for that. You're going to make money off it. It's just a win-win. Like, I think this is just very easy to go for it. The question is, do you have space? And the reason I'm asking, do you have space? Because these next 2 guys playing the same position, and they are very interesting. I think one of them, in my opinion, is a must-have, and it's actually going to be the number 2 most traded in guy at Trez Montreal Harrell. Just honestly was a monster. He is an absolute monster. Traded him by 8.4% of the competition. This guy just, I feel like the 30s he's getting, he looks like he's doing it easy. Like he's gotten a 33 and a 34, and he just looks like that's almost a minimum for him. Like he just looks like he's doing it so easily. He's going to get so many rebounds. He's so aggressive on the ring. I love watching him slam the ball down and then give the ring a bit of a good shake afterwards. But yeah, he's coming in the Sem who weren't that great inside. Like I don't know. I don't see Hunter stopping him, and in situations where they rotate to playing who's their other big that they run? Shoots from outside. Import Hunt. Hurt. There we go. Sorry. Yep. If they rotate to him, I don't think he looks physical enough to stop Trez inside. So I think Trez is going to go absolutely massive again. He also has a good break even of 38. If he's getting 60 points, he's going to be making 20 plus K. So you're making money, you're scoring points. I think when you compare him and KD, Kendrick Davis, I think he's the safer floor guy. I think he looks like a guy that's just going to easily get to that 30 Supercoach points each week because he gets the easy double-double and he's just doing enough there. Where I think KD is a little bit more of the ceiling guy. It looks like on the right game, as we said, he could absolutely explode. So yeah, just I don't know how you could turn him down this week. Like that's the big problem here. When you've got the guy that's getting traded in number 1 that I'll mention later, we've got Trez, you've got Warrenberg. There's too many centers there, and there's too many trades there. If you want a Pepper, if you want a Henshaw, like there's so many things you need to do this week that just feels like 3 trades isn't enough.
I don't think as many trades is enough. Every year we wish we could have a 4 or 5 week where we can trade that many people in and out. But I think with Montrez, we know where his motivation lies. He's someone who eagerly wants to get back to the NBA. So he's going to be playing as hard as he can. Doesn't matter that it's at Adelaide. He loves the game of basketball. You can see how much fun he's having at the moment. And I think, yeah, it'll translate to a really good score this week. My only hesitancy is, and I'm umming and ahhing about this, but I think because they're only apparently having Trez on a short-term contract, I think he'll play both games in the double. However, someone coming off an ACL injury who hasn't played for about 12 months, I wonder if one of those games they kind of decrease his role. I don't think that will happen. I think Adelaide need to win and start to win. So I think this week they might just kind of run him out. But having 4 games over the next kind of 2 weeks, and I know he's been in the NBA where you play 5 games a week sometimes. Yeah. But I just think, I don't know, sometimes I feel like in the NBL, they strategically rest certain players. And I think someone that comes to mind is Rob Lowe this week. I know he was in foul trouble a couple of times, but just with his age, I noticed that Melbourne only playing him 15 minutes a game. And, that's a different discussion we can have. But I just wonder if Adelaide potentially, because of Montrez and his knee, maybe one of these games we don't see him out there for too long. But in saying that, that's a hypothetical. So if you like what you've seen so far, and you enjoy watching him, trade him in for sure.
Yeah, and look, something super important to bring up there too is just how bad Humphrey has looked. He has looked god awful, and I don't know what it is this year. Like you see Kendrick Davis at one stage, he made a drive, passed it to Humphreys, who's at the block by himself, and he just threw it to, I forgot who it was, under the basket, and KD yelled at him. He was giving him a mouthful. He was just like, shoot, mate, like what are you doing? And that just shows the level of confidence he's missing. He knows he's in poor form, and it's playing a mental game, which is then making him look even worse. So it feels like in a game that you almost think needs to be a must win, you're both 0-2, you need to get the win to really get your season started, that I think Trez could take a little bit more of a role where they want to win this. And another thing, as you said, like NBA, it's just, they have so many games a week that, if you're getting a game on Thursday and a game on Sunday, like, bro, that's a break usually. That's usually a big break for those guys. So I would think that condition-wise, he would want to be playing those games because he wants to show that he's ready to go back to the NBA. He's ready for the workload, because it's very different to the workload that we get over here for our players. But to wrap it up, the last guy at the top, it is Big Willie Magnay. who, look, I cannot blame people for. He was sensational, but Boz, you take it away.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know what we get with Magnay, and usually it's only in about 17 minutes. But this year, we've been shown that he's going to be playing that kind of 25 minutes a night role, and that's more than enough to get his. And as we saw on the weekend, 5 blocks and 3 steals, I think. Probably something that won't happen every game, but you can probably lock him in for 2, 3 blocks a game and maybe a steal. So, Will Magnay, he's a player that Tasmania really need to win games. He brings so much energy on the floor, offensive rebounds, putbacks when Doyle or Crawford miss a shot. I guess for me, he's probably the number one trading target for a reason. So there's reason why the numbers are saying that. And I think he's someone at the moment that I would be targeting. But the only thing is, can you afford him to be on a single next week? I mean, maybe we'll have a 56 again. We don't know. But let's say next week, you're looking at your starters and you can only maybe get 3 or 4 players on a double. Is that worth bringing him in this week just for one single? Or would you rather go with someone like Trez, who's going to guarantee you 2 doubles 2 weeks in a row? So for myself, my team's set up in a way that I actually can afford to have Magnay and then still have 5 on the double next week. But there will be some teams out there that if they do trade in Magnay, they might be running a bit thin in that double game week kind of starters. But as we saw, some people on a single can cover that. So I guess it's the risk and versus reward. But definitely so well deserved that Magnay is the number one trade target this week.
Yeah. Look, honestly, like I know that players flop in the NBA. Everyone puts a little bit of mayo on it, but his ones have just been bad. He just hasn't been doing them well. Like Magnay, come on, they're gonna be a bit more convincing than that. Like, let them hit you a little bit more than just like the smallest brush and you're just dropping. Like, come on, man. Like, nobody's fallen for that.
Yeah, it does ruin it when we watch. And I know last year I didn't own Magnay, and that was something I really didn't like about him, the way he kind of goes down. You think about it, you're 7 foot, mate. If I was 7 foot, I'd tell myself I'd be one of the greatest AFL players of all time. But, I get it. There's bigger bodies hitting into you, but you're right. He does go down quite easily. But for SuperCoach, I don't care.
Yeah, no, definitely don't care. But I mean, just on a viewing point of view, like if you're getting hit, that's fine. Everyone sells some mayo on it. That's what you need to do to get fouls. Like it's a physical league. But he's selling the mayo before contact feels like it's being made these days. Like I'm just like, come on, bro, calm down. But no, he's insane. I think we talked about ceilings before. Like obviously he's got an insane ceiling, and I think that comes with sort of the factor that he's getting so many minutes as their main center. He feels like he's always going to get a double-double. He's always sort of going to get enough points, and he's going to get close to the 10 rebounds most weeks, if not get it. And that's almost a certain 25 there. So you're looking for this at least like 25 baseline from Magnay, which is very nice. But then he comes out and randomly can get like 5 blocks in a game, and you just add 15 points to that, and he's getting 40 minimum, let alone like anything else he does on top of it. And that's the huge upside from him. Like this was an insane showing from him. And yes, it's his highest SuperCoach score ever, but I don't think that's out of the wheelhouse of possibility that he could do this again. I definitely think in the right matchup, he can do this again. And I think we will probably see it again later this year that he'll go 50 plus. But yeah, big factor, as you mentioned, is just having only the double and then a single the following week. That's huge. So many people have like Bryce Cotton as well. What, 25% of the comps still have Bryce Cotton? Like, I get it. He's on the double this week. He's going to be really good. But then what's your exit strategy next week? You need to make sure you've got an exit strategy where you can move these guys on and you're hopefully fielding at least 5 players on the double next week. Because, is it worth getting Will Magnet for 3 or a Trez for 4? You got to weigh those things up. What's more important? Is it worth getting a Wardenberg for 4 or a Bank Day for 3? It's hard to say. But then is Wardenberg going to make an extra 20, 30K on top of it? There's too many things there's too many what ifs, too many things you need to weigh up, too many things you need to calculate in. But the things, I think that one thing that was mentioned, that Dave mentioned it earlier this year, is you got to control the controllables. And this is a controllable situation. You can pre-plan to make sure you're in a situation where you can have 5 guys next week on the double. Yes, Boz, you might be in that position where if you have 5 guys this week with Magnay, you've already factored in trading him out next week to still have 5 guys again next week. And you got to make sure you're pre-planning with that. Control the controllables. Just randomly on that subject, we also know that Delhi had a really big week. Me and you talked about it a bit earlier. He's on baby watch, and I know a lot of people have been scared off him because we're pretty sure that when this baby comes, he's not going to be playing. And for those that took that risk on him, like, congratulations so much. But for those that missed out, don't feel bad about that. That was a control the controllable situation. There's no point in bringing a guy in that has a much higher elevated risk of missing a game because of a factor that we're actively aware of. So don't feel bad about not bringing in Delhi if maybe he's someone you're considering, because you still made the correct play. We controlled the controllables. He just popped off. The baby didn't come. If the baby came in game 2 and he never got that 40 points that he got in that game 2, you would have been slapping yourself if you brought him in. So yeah, just wanted to bring in a real sidebar there for people. Control the controllables.
Yeah, no, well said, Verns. That's simply put, what we can control, we can control. What we can't, like random events like that, you can't control them. So why take the risk?
Yeah, when Warningberg's dropping 50, who knew? Who knew, bro? But we will move into the most traded out players this week. I think it's not too surprising with some of these guys, and some of them just so unlucky with as well. But we will start at number 5, and it's going to be Jalen Adams getting traded out by 2.8% of the competition. This is a really interesting one. I'm going to bring in the honorable mention below him, but we actually have Shea Illy at 2.7% traded out. And I think this is a huge way up for people. Jalen Adams, 18.5% owned. Shea Illy, 18.6% owned. Like, they're just neck and neck, and everyone's putting a line in the sand. Is it Jalen Adams that we're trading out this week on a single, or is it Shea Illy who got outscored by Jalen Adams in 2 of his 3 of his games? In his double this week, what is a better play? So we'll talk about both of those. Hit me up. How are you feeling about Shea Illy versus Adams?
Yeah, well, look, I have Shea Illy, so a bit disappointed with how he performed over the weekend. Was expecting, probably a 40, to be honest. I didn't expect him to go too much higher than that. But, putting out, what was it, 27, I think, in total. So, a bit disappointed. But look, another chance to redeem himself. He's got a double game week. He's looking like he'll leak a bit more cash, which is not ideal. But I think you just need to kind of stick with the kind of safe rule of a double game week is usually better than a single game week. For me, I can't compare the Adams and Illy because I don't have Adams. So if you were someone who had Adams and Illy as your backcourt guards, I'd be happy with you getting rid of Illy and actually backing in Adams, because the week after, Adams goes back to a double-double. So you think about it. Who would you rather over 3 games? Would you rather 3 games of Illy, like a double than a single? Or would you rather a single of Adams and then have Adams for his double next week? So I think I would actually keep Adams in that situation, weirdly. But for me, I kind of have to keep him because I have things I have to do around him, like a Derek Walton Jr. That's kind of forced my hand. So I'll be keeping Illy, but I totally understand if you had Adams and Illy that you'd choose to actually get rid of Illy out of frustration, probably.
Yeah, look, something I'm personally tossing up this week. It's such a hard one to feel. It's like, what happens if Illy over 2 games drops 40? Adams could easily make 40 in 1 game sort of thing. Look at the 2 break evens. Illy's got a 58 break even. If he's dropping 40, he's probably losing between 15 to 20K cash. And we talk about how important cash is in this game. And you don't just want to throw 20K down the drain. But obviously, double game week. What happens if Illy comes out and he does what he did in week 1? He drops a 30 plus and then maybe has a 20 to follow it up, and you're happy with a 50 score. Adams, his second game, he dropped a 24. What happens if you hold Adams for a single and he drops a 24? There's so many what ifs. I think what's tempting me at the moment is it's Adam into Brisbane, who have not been very good at all. And I think he could definitely be tearing them up. But yeah, very, very hard one to tell. As you mentioned, Adams is going to be a big target for people to get back in the following week. So if you do keep him this week, it's not like it's not a situation where you're going to have like 3 singles in a row, like a Darius Days or something like that, or Derek Walton Jr. 3 singles in a row, where it's just like keeping him this week and then you have to move him on next week. No, we keep him this week. You at least get him next week, and then you're prepped for that. That's a game where there's only 3 teams on the doubles as well, so there's not many players on it, and to be prepped for that could really set you up to have a big bang in round 4. But yeah, I think that's one. It's very hard to tell. Very hard to tell. We'll jump to number 4. This one hurts me physically because I had faith in this man. It is Angus Glover getting traded out by 3% of the competition. I personally had faith in him. He dropped that 14 in round 1. I was feeling confident in the pick, and then he gets a 1 in game 2, and It's not the end of the world. He loses 4K, but his total score that he's now put together is 25. Bro, you could have run a Henschel for one game and then had him did not play this week and you got more points and you didn't lose 4K. Like, it's pretty frustrating, honestly. It's pretty frustrating. I think very reasonable to trade him out because he's not going to be a cash cow. He's an easy sideways to a Pepper or a Henshaw this week. Just get him on out of here. Buzz, how you feel about Glover?
Yeah, I started Glover as well. Very last minute as well. I just never had him in my team, and then had a bit of extra cash lying around, and I thought I'd try to maximize who I had in my team. It was like a Lepepe or a Glover, and I went with, instead of saving 50K, I chose Glover. And look, in that last game against New Zealand, he actually played all right. He's just shot. His shot has not fallen. That's the only thing that's going wrong. He's been given so many open looks, and he's got a really nice left-handed jump shot, but just those threes have not fallen. I think I saw 2 or 3 on Sunday just rattle in and pop out. So, his shot's not falling, but everything else is actually not bad. I know that one game against Melbourne in the throwdown was terrible, but even in the first game, like, he actually does a bit more than we think. He got 4 assists on Sunday. So, he's got a SuperCoach game there. It's just about putting together a full game in terms of scoring with those assists. And, my patience is worn thin, so he'll be out for me this week due to their schedule. But I was really hoping that, at least one of these first 3 games, he could have, scored, you hit 3 threes, he's got 9 points and 4 assists, and that changes the whole kind of break even and the money that he starts to make. So, it wasn't a bad pick, but unfortunately it hasn't obviously played off.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned, it's been surprising because he's been known to be like a shooter, a scorer. He makes super coach points because he puts the ball in the bucket. And he hasn't put the ball in the bucket this season. His shot, as you mentioned, it's been off, which is very disappointing. Like, nothing more frustrating than seeing a shooter catch the ball wide open at 3 and they can't make the shot. Very, very annoying to watch. But yeah, it's surprising how well the rest of his game's actually coming together. Like, to make up for his inability to hit a shot right now, he's getting assists, he's getting rebounds, he's being active. Unfortunately, in the Melbourne game, he didn't do that and didn't hit shots, and resulted in nothing. But yeah, I mean, completely reasonable trade out. He's got 3 singles. He didn't make it work. I know for a lot of people, we were tossing up if you started Glover and Hickey, it's a matter of who's going to Henschel, and Hickey outperformed him. So the answer is Glover's going to Henschel. It was that simple. But this one, I will let you rant off. It is 4.9% of the comp have traded out Derek Walton Jr., which in my opinion was the correct play for me to trade in this week, but I couldn't make it happen because I had Harrison and Cotton, and I had so many other things I had to deal with. And in my eyes, I'd made the not ideal route of going for Adams instead of Derek Walton Jr. just because of the situation. And somehow I get massive reward and you get hugely punished. But tell us all about it.
Yeah, not ideal. I was thinking the other day, yesterday, sorry, I was thinking that the Cotton starting move ended up being the right move because a lot of people having Cotton could easily get Adams. But someone who started like myself, Derek Walton, you didn't really think about Adams, even though he went off in round 1. It was more of a luxury kind of position to be in. And to be honest, I did have an extra trade I could have used to actually get Adams in, but I like to play the game a bit safer than that. So, it didn't pay off. Look, Derek Walton looked great game 1. Even in the throwdown game, his shot was falling. I mentioned on Twitter that, he probably deserved more than the 4 assists that he got, purely because his teammates missed a couple of open shots. And,
Glover.
Glover and Sobey, etc. So I was just praying that Sunday, sit back at 4:30 on the couch and, hopefully he gets to that 55-60 mark with another kind of mid-20 score. And, oh boy, it was not great at all. To be fair, I don't know what even happened. Like, he got a bit unlucky with the refs, and I think that got into his head, and he started to argue a bit. I don't know he didn't find that pick and roll game with Geordie Hunter, and every time he give the ball to Hurt would not just catch and shoot. He'd try to put a couple dribbles in there, which takes away the assist. So, it just wasn't Derek Walton's game, and these players have those. You got to be aware of that. Not every player is going to play perfectly the entire season. Unfortunately, it was just a week that I captained it, and in previous Supercoach years, AFL and NBL, I probably would have cracked the sads, but, I've learned to be positive in this game. I've learned it's for enjoyment. So, as much as I could rant and rave on here right now, it's just a bad game for Derek Walton. I'll have no hesitation in bringing him back in throughout the year if I see some improvement. Just unlucky on my behalf, I'd say, and many others that would have captained him. I know DVG captained him as well, and I'm not sure how he ended up this round, but yeah, he hurt a few of us.
Yeah, no, it was massive. Just I can't believe it happened that way. And as I said, honestly, someone that I personally wanted because it would work for my structure, but it would mean I would have. The only way I could get there is just basically blowing up my team. And I was just like, look, rather than blowing up my team, I'll just bring in Adams and accept that I messed up. Whatever, it is what it is. But then, yeah, I get absolutely rewarded in just unjustifiably so. And I feel bad because I baited a few people myself into getting Derek Walton, which it's not baited because I still think holistically, if you look at this without, the results based, it was the correct play. It was the correct play for a lot of situations. You bring in Derek Walton, that extra money means that you get on low. So then you get the cover over these 4 games that he's going to have over 2 weeks. And it just made a lot of sense to get him in. And people just got unjustifiably punished for it, just wrecked. And as you mentioned, you started as, with him as a starting pick. You're never going to go sideways him to Adams. He just dropped 37 in the first round. Like, he looks like an elite pick. Like, it was a great starting move. And one of those moves, I was sitting there after round 1 thinking, man, like, maybe I should have considered that a bit more. Maybe there was another option. And then then this happens and you just feel bad for everyone that was on it. But I think something that we'll have to take into account going forward with Sem is the Sobi effect. Like, it looks a lot worse for everyone else in that team when Sobi's having a good game. That's SuperCoach wise, of course. When he's having a good game, he was getting leather poisoning. The ball was not leaving his hand. He wanted to shoot everything. Everything was going through him. There's no point Derek Walton even being on the field a lot of the time because he's going to give the ball to Sobi and then run off to a corner, and Sobi's going to take his, as you mentioned, 4 or 5 dribbles, try and make his move, pull up. Like, it just, yeah, I feel like Sobi himself was eating SuperCoach points out of everybody else's pocket. Like, he stopped his teammates from having massive scores. He didn't even get a good score himself because he had so many turnovers. And it just didn't look like it was a good thing for Sem that he was having a good game. Like, there was definitely points where it felt like that because they fell quite behind and he had a hot streak and he definitely carried the team for a little bit there. But then, as I mentioned, the sort of the Sobi effect happens where he now thinks every possession, it's his ball. Every shot is his shot. And I feel like he brought the team back in it and then lost it because he just, I mean, you knew you had the hot hand. You knew they were overplaying you. That's the time that you make a move to get someone else open, get someone else to take the shot. You don't have to jack everything. But look, that's just a random rant on Sobi, but I think something that's relevant for SuperCoach, because there could be games later on where it's like you might mention Derek Walton might have 4 or 5 good games in a row and you think, great, let's get back on him. And then Sobi goes off one game and it just ruins everyone,
No, exactly right. I'll be interested to see how if they change their lineup in terms of rotations. I think there's merit in having Sobi as a 6-man and kind of having him on the court when Derek Walton's resting. But, that's all about ego. And I don't know Sobi from a bar of soap, but I'd be led to believe he'd probably say no to that. I think he'd like to start. But look, that's just something to take into consideration as well.
I'm really glad you thought that, actually, because watching the game myself, I thought the same thing. And this might be a little bit of the Glover bias since we owned him, but I was like, honestly, Sobi went off at one point and the team looked better replacing that starting position from Sobi to Glover. You don't need another guy on the field that's going to hog the ball like that. You already have Hurt that's doing a lot with it. Like, he's hitting shots. You have Hunter, who's got a great pick and roll game with Derek Walton. Derek Walton wants the ball in his hand. And then you have Wisekamp, who can pull up from anywhere. You don't need another Sobi. You don't need a guy in there holding the ball for a good 20 seconds in offense, and then with 4 seconds tries to make a play, and getting a guy like Glover, who's a knockdown shooter as well, get him in the corner, spread out that floor, get your pick and rolls going, and then you kick it out to him and hopefully he starts hitting shots. But I think that definitely would have looked a lot better. And then Sobi comes in and controls that second unit. Get Foxwell moving with Sobi, who did look quite good with Sobi. I thought when he was playing, he was good with Sobi. And that's probably just a bit of a respect thing that you've come onto the court as a junior body with, an Olympian in your team who's can be an absolute game changer in the right situation. And they looked really good working together. And I think that could have maybe been a better mix for Sem than putting all the big dogs on the court at the same time. And that's something that I think we see with Sydney, where they're not running all the big dogs on the court at the same time. Oliver comes in and they start Lepepe, because Lepepe is a role player that covers that team really nicely when they have so many big dogs to start off with. And then when the second unit comes on, Lepepe takes a break. Oliver can come in and be a bit more relevant when Cooks goes to the bench, when Tui goes to the bench, when these other superstars get off the court, sort of thing. So I think that's something that maybe Sem should be looking at. I mean, I'm sure they don't listen to our podcast and they don't care what we say, but I mean, just saying, I wouldn't be surprised. You'd like them to take a note from Sydney's book, who have a star-studded lineup. And people have been talking about this. I've been watching NBL 360. The panel, they talk about that they're like, Sem's team is elite. They drafted a great team. They're going to be a top 4 team this year. That's how highly they think of this team, but it's just not coming together. And that might be something that they need to look at what Sydney's doing with all their talent and be like, we need to spread it out. Get it. Sorry, this is random basketball talk, not even relevant to SuperCoach to a degree. I mean, it is, because it affects the game, but yeah, just something that I think they could make a lot better. But we will get back to the SuperCoach front. Second most traded out player. Bit surprised here myself. He's someone I'm camping on the bench, but it's going to be Cam Oliver at 5.9% traded out. So over 1,000 teams have moved him on out. Now, I guess I can understand that in the sense that maybe he didn't perform to the expectations we were expecting because of the blitz. People were wanting high 30s, 40s out of him, but he's been really good. He's averaging 29. He was priced at 24 to start the season. He's going to be earning some money, and he does have a ceiling. We saw that in the blitz. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out with a 40 here or there, and then that really gets his cash gen sort of moving to get him up to this 350 sort of K mark.
I think with Oliver, I've noticed that people are trading him out, and I think it's purely to get that extra cash, because I think a lot of people will want to run a Magne, KD, and Montrez as their 3 ins this week. That's what I'm seeing a lot out there. So I think needing or finding that cash has to come from somewhere, and I think people are sacrificing Oliver. I'm with you, Verns. I've got him currently on my bench. I'm not going to trade him out because I've loved what he's done. He's come back a really complete player. He shoots that 3 ball as well as any big I've really seen, to be honest. Like, he's not afraid, and you're right. Once these rebounds start ticking up, and even the defensive stats, he's gotten more steals and blocks so far. Now, big guys, because they're so lengthy in the lane, they fall into a steal or 2 with their deflections. I think with Oliver, we need to see some defensive stats in terms of those blocks, and I think we can. So I'm still really high on Oliver. I'm going to keep him. Sydney have that double next week. He's someone that I'll then obviously swap with, let's say, a Magne. He comes onto my court, covers Magne for me for a week. But yeah, I've loved what I've seen with Oliver. So, to those trading him out, I hope it's not based on form. I hope it's based on, I need cash from somewhere to kind of fund a Montrez or to fund a Magne as well.
Yeah. And if you've worked that out, that's fine, because you mentioned it with the Magne Oliver actually have a really nice yin yang going, where you've got, obviously Oliver had the double this week, then Magne has the double, then Oliver has the double, then Magne has the double, then Oliver has the double. And you just yin yang them off the bench really nicely in reality. Honestly, something I was very interested in, but I'm someone that doesn't have Henschel, meaning I have to get Henschel, meaning if I'm getting Henschel, I then have to be sacrificing one of those, I guess big 4, we want to say. I mean, Waterberg's a target this week, Magne, Trez, and KD. And I can only get 2 of them. And I have to give up some of them. And I wish there was a way. I wish that I had Henschel on my team instead of Glover. Could have earned 2 extra points. And then I'd have the extra trade this week. I wouldn't have to move Glover to Henschel and then worry about it later on. I could be moving a Wardenberg in for like a Zukowski. There's a way I was working that in my team where I have enough money to sort of go Zukowski up, because honestly, that man has a lower break even than Zukowski, and he's on a double. So, but then I was like giving up Henschel when I was sort of looking at that option if I was trying to make it work that way. And so I'm a bit upset there. So I don't blame people for moving Oliver, because as you mentioned, if that's what you're doing with it, if you're setting yourself up to have these 3 big dogs this week and you've still got the future planning, then it makes plenty of sense. Some of us aren't in that sort of luxury position, unfortunately, making that play. But we will move on to the number 1. I'll let you take it away. It is 7% traded out. Darius
Darius
Days.
Days. Yeah, thought so. Yeah, I mean, what a great player he's been so far. Someone I traded in this week, so I basically flipped Froling to save some money as well as make money because I knew Froling was either going to kind of level out or lose. So Froling outscored him by 1 point. So, I lost 1 point. Maybe it would have moved me from 5,778 to maybe 5,777 overall. Who knows? That extra point. But look, Days was someone that, well done to those who started him. He's played his single. He scored really well for you. He was a save captain option. I think he scored 62, I think. So that's something that I'd be happy with. I know there were the others that scored high, but that's fine. And he's had his double, and now they got 3 singles in a row. So rightfully so, get him out. He's made his 30K for you. Flick him on to a Trez or, again, a Magne and enjoy their double contributions.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, he was really good. His first game, a little bit lackluster. His 3-ball looked better. And I think that's something that we talked about sort of in week 1, where it's like he brought a complete game while being out, like having an off shooting night from the outside. This week, he had a better shooting night from the outside, but then the other areas were a little bit lackluster. So it kind of evened out in its own way. But I think, he was a really safe captain. He has that really high floor as well. I mean, the 24 he got, like that just, I feel like that's going to be one of the lowest scores we see from him all year. So very, very safe base. But what we will do, since we have wrapped up trades in and out, we will just thank all you all for tuning in to obviously the SuperCoach Hub, for liking, subscribing, for your consistent injections of SuperCoach content directly into your YouTube feed. And we will obviously shout out our Discord. So if you are interested, jump into our Discord. There is plenty of discussion always happening there. We have a consensus team. The consensus team this week came out with a pretty massive score itself of 418. I would like to apologize for everyone in that consensus chat because I do run the team at the end of the day. I'm the one that has access to it to set up the trades and whatnot. And I did unfortunately make a mistake where we were meant to be trading in Derek Walter Jr. and Lowe, and I'd set the trades up and I never hit save. And I came back to the app later on and realized I hadn't saved it. So really sorry for everyone that put their votes in then because we couldn't do it. Obviously, we put out another poll to be like, what do we want to do next? And we decided to go just Adams and Henschel because it was sort of just the next best thing. Ended up working out for more points and probably more money made and just ended up being way better. So I would like to apologize, but you can also thank me for it. Feel however you want about that. But yeah, jump into that consensus team where we have a bit of a chat going there, and it's obviously a lot of fun. So get your votes in. I put the votes out each week. I actually got the team out nice and early, so I will get the votes out early for that as well for what people want. Probably do it after this since I'm thinking about it. But then we've also got plenty of discussion in there. We got all the guys that jump on here in there as well. If you want to be talking to Pleb, if you want to talk to Boz, if you want to talk to me, Barnsey, whoever it is, we're always in there chatting. So if you drop a comment or if you have questions, you're going to get it answered by honestly one of us, like one of these guys that rock up here and one of these guys that nerd out on the game pretty hard. So you should get a pretty informative answer. But yeah, we will move into our pods of the week. Now, I don't know if you've thought of any pods here. Now there's a few different ways you could look at a pod. Is it going to be a pod because they're lowly traded in, or are they a pod because they're lowly owned? I think it's early enough in the season to justify someone that's been lowly traded in, even if their ownership's a bit higher. But do you have anyone to start off with, Boz, or you want me to get this rolling?
You get it rolling, Verns. I've got a few, but I'd like to hear from you first.
Oh, man. Look, I definitely want to be targeting these guys that would look like they're going to make money. I would love to get these guys that are on these double doubles, more or less. But there's a few other guys here that I think jump out as potential picks. I'm going to give us 2, and they're a little bit. One of them is really dependent on what happens with Jackson McCoy, and that is going to be Kyle Adnam. Is that how we say it?
Adnam.
Yep, Adnam. Yep, Kyle Adnam, who came in and looked pretty good. I was actually pretty happy with what he was doing for that team. They've been running a game without a point guard for this long, and they looked a lot better when they had a point guard actually on the court. I really liked what he was doing. Cans ended up getting up as well, I'm pretty sure. He got 16 SuperCoach points while priced at 6. So he doesn't have to do much this week. He's got a break even of 2. As long as he's basically playing those 2 games, you think he's going to be making money. And he really liked to score the ball. I was surprised. I thought they were bringing in a point guard to get that ball moving around, but he was happy to take on his defender and just put it in the bucket, which was very nice to see. So I think he's a shout this week, an alternative option, I guess, to your Henschel or Peppers. Obviously, Henschel and Pepper have a better break even, and I think maybe a bit more job security because Adnam is reliant on if Jackson McCoy coming back, Taron Armstrong coming back. When are these other point guards coming back that could move him out? But the difference is he does have a double-double. So he's going to have that one extra game over this period of time. If those guys, my understanding is Jackson McCoy should be back this week. But even if he's back, I mean, Adnam did pretty well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he played again. So he's probably a bit more of a speculative pod just because of the job security issues. But this other one's quite the opposite. Sam McDaniel is gone for the season. And Josh Bannon, we still have not seen him. And because of this, we have seen the MVP, Casey Prather, actually getting some great minutes. And he's not a pod in the sense that he's owned by 21% of the competition already. Definitely someone I was tossing up starting and then decided they wanted 2 double game week players for round 2 and then could move to Prather afterwards. Unfortunately, there's way too many Adelaide guys to get now, so I can't do that. But he's only 0.3% traded in this week. He's got a -4 break even. Yes, I know their schedule sucks. It's a lot of single games, but he's averaging 21 points in his first 2 games. Like, you're paying for a guy that's priced at roughly 10. He's doing double that. If you were to bring in or hold a Glover at that sort of price, feels like he's outscoring them in a single game. So even a Lat Mayen, someone that obviously did quite well week 1 and then was average this week, he's putting out what I think he'll put out better numbers than Lat Mayen. But definitely another option that you could go for. Adds that forward guard flexibility so you can move him with Henschel. And I think that's a very nice yin yang you get with Henschel and him in a forward guard position that you can easily move them around sort of thing. But yeah, do you have any pods for us, Bods?
Yeah, I've kind of gone for some pods that are a bit higher in terms of price. So Doolittle from Perth. Now, if you're someone who can afford just having someone on a double this week and then get him straight out, he's put together some nice games. He scored 27 on Friday and had 7 turnovers. Pretty sure all four of those turnovers were straight to Adams. So thanks for that, Doolittle. But he honestly is putting up a really nice season. If it wasn't for those, let's say he only had 2 or 3 turnovers. He's not a very high turnover guy, Doolittle. He probably could have scored 35. And then we're looking at someone who's actually averaging about 35. So Doolittle could be someone, and his break even's still quite low. It's still at about, I think, 55 to 60, somewhere around there. So not looking like he's going to lose money if he can put together 2 nice games. And I'm going to stick on the Perth.
46.
Oh, it's even lower, 46. There you go. So if in theory you'd think he makes you money on that double. And then I'm going to stay on the Perth train with Windler. So I know Perth came out and said that they're going to kind of ease him into it, but I think we saw on Friday night that they actually needed him. His rebounding, it's really, really impressive. So I know he had that 27 rebound game in the G League or whatever, but he honestly, he's hungry for a rebound for a guard/forward. He's only 1% owned and can obviously hit the 3 ball really nicely, get some rebounds from that guard forward spot. And I think he can put together a nice score over the double as well.
Yeah, I love that Windler shout. He was actually someone I was considering when I was looking at the pods, but as I said, I wanted to focus on. I mentioned focusing on guys with double-doubles, but then I also threw Prather in there, so kind of defeated my own wording. But yeah, no, as you mentioned, he was so good when he wanted he get like 15 rebounds or something. He just wanted the ball. It was insane, and that just means he needs to somehow find a way to get 10 points. It's not too many points to ask for, but if he can find it, then he's going to get a double-double. Obviously, Pinder had a very, very poor game here, unfortunately. But the more important thing here is that 18 in round 1 doesn't actually matter. It's only about the 36 he scored in game 2 that's going to matter to his price. So he's got a break even of 37, roughly priced the same as a Doolittle. I love that as a shout. As you said, if you can afford someone that's just got a single double game, then he's a great option. Especially if you need someone in that guard position too.
Yeah, you do a similar thing like Darius Days last week. So you aren't captain him, but he'll make you hopefully 15 to 20K, and then you just move him on once his singles start.
Yeah, no, it's going to be so good. Obviously, the only thing there is you're going to have your Melbourne players probably ready to move on as well at that stage. So that's something that you've got to make sure you're planning to. If you're bringing someone in for just a single double game this week, the Melbourne run, they're going to have two singles in a row, and you're probably not going to want to hold on to too many Melbourne players. Probably White, because I think White makes money, but then your other Melbourne players might need to go. And if you end up in a position where you've got like two Perth players that need to go, like you decided to hold, oh gosh, I already blanked on his name. You hold Cotton, you brought in Magne or something like that, and then you've got like a low that sort of needs to be moved on because you don't really have a good run going forward, or you have an illy that you want to move on. You might end up in this awkward position where you just don't have enough guys for round 4, and as you mentioned earlier, leave yourself thin for round 4. And even though you made points in round 3, you then gave them up in round 4. So yeah, definitely something to consider for everyone. So we'll wrap it up with captains. Now, who is your captain for this week?
Well, barring trades, I've kind of made them right now. They could change, but it will be Magne if I keep Magne. I think his matchup against Cairns is really nice in terms of them giving up some decent points to bigs. I think especially Cairns wanting Tanner Groves out there, a bigger body will mean Magne will need to play some more. So purely on Magne's form, ceiling, and matchup, it would be Magne. If you have Cotton, I won't be having him this week. But again, like if you're getting Cotton in or if you've kept him, you should be captaining him because he can obviously put up those really high ceiling scores. And I think to round out my captaincy options is if I get a little bit of cold feet on Magne and I'm a bit scared or whatever reason, I want to kind of play it safe. Verns, what you mentioned before in Jack White, I think he's shown that he can be a really safe 55 to 60 double game week scorer. So that'll be the three that I'd be looking at if I had them in my team.
Yeah, no, 100%. Bryce, I think if you've held on to Bryce or you're getting Bryce in, if you're not making him captain, then why are you paying 450K for this man? Because his break even's like 98, I think it is. This man's going to lose
Yeah.
money. It's guaranteed he's going to
90.
lose money. So
Yeah.
he needs, is it Pinder who has 98 then? Because they both like,
Yeah, Pinder's 98. Yeah.
no, ridiculous. But yeah, if you have these guys, they're going to lose money. Don't get me wrong. It's actually within Bryce's wheelhouse to get to 90. And if he gets you 90, doesn't lose you super coach points, if that's what you think he's doing, for the love of God, why do you not have the captaincy on him? Like, if you think that. So there's a good chance he's going to lose money this week. So if you're bringing him in or holding on to him, to be fair, if you've already held him, I wouldn't be trading him. So if you're bringing him in, you need to be captaining him. If you've held on to him, you need to be captaining him. And then hopefully he can match that break even. My two guys I'm looking at, this is actually, I've been a little bit upsy. I tossing and turning these two. It is our two Adelaide boys. It is Trez and it is KD. I mentioned it earlier, but I think Trez is the safer floor. I think he's going to get 60 points, no question asked. And that's a perfectly fine Supercoach captaincy score. I know this week we had some guys going 70, and we've had previous weeks where guys have potentially gone 100 and whatnot. But like 60 is still a really good captain score. Like I feel like that's your 120 in sort of AFL. Like it's one that you're happy with. Yes, you didn't get the guy that went 170 this week, but you're very happy for a guy that can churn out this sort of 110 plus around that price. So I think Trez is safe. Where we mentioned it with Davis, I feel like if he gets it to click in one game, he could be 50 points in a game. And even in his bad games, he's looking like he's still sort of getting 25 plus. So I'm hoping, I think he's maybe a bit more risk on the, maybe has a bit of a lower floor, maybe ends up with 50 as a floor sort of thing. But I think as a ceiling, he could be looking towards this 80 to 90 mark. So I don't get me wrong. I think Trez has the potential of that too, but I just think, I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. I think safest play Trez, riskier play KD. I think me personally, I'm going to throw it on KD and pray for a ceiling.
No, fair call. And I think if you want a bit of motivation on the KD, Olgan tweeted something out, kind of like a recap over the last couple of rounds last night. And one of the things he mentioned was, can KD play both ends of the floor? And KD actually replied to that tweet saying, I'm gonna hold this as a receipt till the end of the season. We'll see where we are. So I think that actually might, have KD a bit highly more motivated. So hopefully he can actually pull out a big score this week with that in the back of his mind.
Oh, I love that. No, I did see that tweet from him, but I didn't realize KD actually replied to it himself.
Yeah, he replied.
Oh, that's fire. I love it. And as we mentioned, Sem this week, who was sloppy with the ball last week, he could get some cheeky steals in there. Illawarra is a bit more of a lockdown team, though. We saw it with Bryce in previous seasons. When they want to lock down, they can lock a guard down. But I
Even
still think,
Adams, sorry, even Adams this
yeah,
week, they locked him down score wise. He still managed to get a nice score purely on his assists.
yeah.
But they had his measure when it came to the scoring. I think he shot, 25, 30%.
I mean, to be fair on that, he was missing wide open threes. Like week one, what he hit like 7 threes straight. I don't think that was the exact number, but like he was in on fire. The game started, and he was just bang, bang, bang. Like first 4 out of 5, he's just nailing him. This game, he's finding himself wide open, and it just wasn't happening. So I think as much as we want to say Illawarra defense, I think Illawarra honestly gave him the opportunity to put up a big score. It just wasn't his night. Ball wasn't dropping. So
Fair enough.
but yeah, very interested this week. Yeah. Anyway, I think we will wrap it up there. So, Boz, where can the fans find you?
SC Boz on Twitter or X, and obviously frequenting the Discord. And yourself, Verns?
Yeah, so you can find me on Verns Supercoach on YouTube. I will need to get a video done for that later this week, maybe after this. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But then I'll also be on X, just Verns_SC Hub. So yeah, once again, appreciate all of you guys for tuning in to our video. As I said, come join our Discord. A link will be below in the description. Any final words, Boz?
Ooh, final words. Hopefully I can score better than 325 and increase my ranking. So tune in.
We'll see. We'll see next week. Tune in next week to see if Boz beats 325.